We're going to look at 4 different methods for multiplying decimals. We're going to start with the standard multiplication algorithm. We're also going to go back to fraction multiplication, and then we're going to do a visual method with decimal grids or area models. And then finally, we'll do the estimation and reasoning method. So let's just start with the standard algorithm. This is still the most common method that multiplication with decimals is taught. And so when we think about the standard algorithm for adding and subtracting decimals, one of the things we mentioned was that your decimals need to line up. And so the question is, do you need to do that with multiplication? Do your decimals need to line up? And they do not. And that is something that is a little bit tricky, especially when students come back to decimals after not doing it for a while. It's real easy to forget when you're supposed to line them up, like in addition and subtraction, and when you're not supposed to line them up, like in multiplication. So we do not need to line up our decimals, and as a matter of fact, if I'm doing this one, since both numbers have 3 digits in them, I'm actually going to line up my digits instead of lining up my decimals. And then I put my decimals in there, but I am essentially ignoring them until the very end. I'm going to do this multiplication with the standard algorithm as if I was doing 857 times 236. So with the standard algorithm, the way that I would do that is I would start by multiplying the 6 that's in the first digit, or I should say the rightmost digit. I'm going to multiply that by every digit in the first number, right? So I'm going to do 6 times 7, which would be 42. So I'm going to write my 2 and regroup my 4. And then I'll do 6 times 5, which is 30. I'm going to add that regrouped 4, so that's 34, which means I'm going to write a 4 and regroup a 3. And then finally 6 times 8 is 48 plus the 3 that I regrouped, so it's going to be 51. I'm going to write my 1, and then since there's no place to regroup my 5, I'm also going to go ahead and write my 5. And then I'm going to move on to the next digit. So I already did 6 times everything. So next I'm going to do the 3 times everything. And I'm just going to move my way here right to left across this bottom number. So every time that I move over to a new place value, I'm going to need a 0 placeholder. So since I'm moving over to the 3, I'm going to put in that 0. And it's good to either cross out or erase any of your regrouping from the last step so that you don't get it mixed up with your regrouping on this step. So then I'm going to multiply 3 times each digit in that first number. So starting with 3 times 7, 3 times 7 is 21. So I would write my 1 and regroup my 2. Then I'm going to do 3 times 5, which is 15, and then add my 2 that I regrouped, which is 17. So I'm going to write a 7 and regroup a 1. And then finally 3 times 8 is 24, plus the one I regrouped is 25. There's no place to regroup, so I'm going to go ahead and write both of those digits. And then finally, I'm going to move on to the 2, and since I'm moving over yet another place value, I need yet another 0 placeholder. So this time I need 2 zeros. And I'll erase my regrouping from the last step and go through multiplying each digit in 85 7/10 times 2. So 2 times 7 is 14, regroup my 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Regroup my 1. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. And I'll write both of those digits. All right, so I've basically ignored my decimals to this point, and I'm not quite ready for them yet, but I'm almost there. So I've multiplied this as if I was multiplying 857 times 236. Now that I have all these numbers, I'm going to add these up. So 2 plus 0 plus 0, 4 plus 1. When I add 1 plus 7 plus 4, I get 12. So I'm going to write a 2 and regroup a 1. And then when I add 5 plus 5, I get 10, plus 1 is 11, plus the regrouped 1 is 12. So I'll write a 2 and regroup a 1. 2 plus 7 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So I'll write a 0, regroup a 1. And then 1 plus the regrouped 1 is 2. So I'm getting 2, 0, 2, 2, 5, 2. And now is when I will finally decide about my decimals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the number of digits behind the decimal in each of my multiplicands. So in the first one, there was 1 digit, just the 7, that was behind the decimal. In the second number, there are 2 digits that are behind the decimal in my number. So if I look at that all together, the total number is 3 digits. I'm just going to write a brief explanation of that. So 1 digit behind the decimal in our first multiplicand, 2 digits behind the decimal in our second multiplicand. That's a total of 3. So I want to make sure that my answer has a total of 3 digits behind the decimal point. And so that's how I know where to place that decimal. And so my answer in this case would be 202 and 252 thousandths.